Oh, boy. Okay, President Trump having some fun in the Oval Office with the FIFA president comes as his opposition, the Democratic Party, looks to score points against the MAGA movement. But how? Well, the center-left think tank Third Way releasing a memo advising the party to ditch 45 words and phrases, stuff like privilege, microaggression, the unhoused, birthing person, and allyship. The list goes on and on. But will the left have anything left to say?
When the Republicans start there will be macro and microaggressions. There will be overt racist attacks.
We are voting out the people who are continuing these systems of oppression.
Donald Trump is an existential threat to our democracy.
Trump's call to immediately clear unhoused people from the streets of D.C.
Endanger the lives of all women and all burdened people in this country.
Formerly incarcerated people.
Don't be a handmaiden to the patriarchy.
So the list of banned words just tops off a brutal week for headlines for Democrats. New data shows a record number of voters jumping ship to the GOP. But one left-wing commentator claims the party can win them back by embracing these folks.
It's not necessarily left versus center. It's fight versus cave. And the people who fight get support. And the people who cave or are mealy-mouthed or are, very sort of corporatist-y, that crew, the crew that's afraid, cannot break through, does not appeal to voters. Chris Murphy, Sherrod Brown, Mondami, these people, AOC, they're not all exactly the same politically, but they are the same in the fact that they're brave and they break through.
So as Democrats debate banning certain woke terms, perhaps they should also reconsider heated rhetoric that equates Republicans, again, with Nazis.
It doesn't take very long to tear apart a constitutional republic. Indeed, the Nazis did it in 53 days. And our democracy is almost as fragile. And we're seeing it right now.
Are you aware that when there was slavery times, blacks fled? During the Nazi times, Jewish people fled. They fled their oppressor.
All ICE is supposed to do, look at them as a fancy Uber driver for immigrants.
All right, Katie, I'm going to start with you. I thought that we had all agreed across party lines that Nazi references were just not cool.
Especially when you're comparing it to things like fleeing your state for gerrymandering purposes. I mean, that's how it's clear to me they don't have an argument. And there's a whole lot of words, as we know, that they're trying to get away with. And so maybe that should be one of them on the list, is not doing the Nazi references. But they're grappling with this idea of authenticity. Democrats for months have said we need our own Joe Rogan. When they had Joe Rogan, Donald Trump didn't reshape the political landscape by being politically correct or by listening to a bunch of pollsters or by doing study groups with people. He did it by being authentic and saying, I don't care. People are trying to tell you you're a bad person. They're calling you a Nazi. They're calling you racist for not wanting, basic things to be taken away from you, for changing the language like birthing person, pregnant people, chest feeding, by alienating groups within the Democratic Party, like Latino voters, for example, who came over in droves for Trump, by calling them Latinx and forcing these progressive radical ideologies on these groups that are actually pretty traditional, but they happen to be Democrats. So they're really going out there with these wild accusations about Nazism and all these things, while they're really having a hard time finding policies that work for them and authentic candidates that aren't super far left, like Mamdani, for example, that they can actually rely on.
Well, and Jesse, we're glad you decided to join us for the show today.
I barely made it.
I know, but you knew we couldn't start without you.
That was close.
Were you held up somewhere?
Was there?
I was in hair and makeup.
Was there a stomach situation?
You must have felt like Anne Frank in there.
No, not going there.
I need Johnny. Johnny's on a shoot, and so I was untethered.
Did you have to do your own hair?
Did it remind you of 9/11?
The unthinkable?
Somewhat.
Shannon, don't insult Robbie's work like that.
No, Robbie, the hair guy, should have brought me out. There was no urgency. Allie, no one came in and got me.
Is Robbie a Nazi? Is that what you're saying?
Do you have you've got a very expensive watch on. I assume it tells time.
Expensive watch. This is like $300. Greg's is like $17,000.
That is expensive.
How much is that watch?
I'm not saying.
Exactly. He's embarrassed because the watch is so expensive.
You can't ask people how much they weigh or how much
He's so embarrassed.
Okay, so listen, there's this debate over using these super weird words that you would not use in conversation with a friend or anyone else. So listen, President Trump, his critics will say things like he talks like an 8th grader. I mean, the man went to Wharton Business School at UPenn, but Jesse, he knows how to talk to people. They don't feel like they need a thesaurus to figure out what he's saying.
Yeah, they paid a guy $1 million to tell him to talk like Republicans. I mean, what kind of Democrat needs a memo to know how to talk and know how not to sound like a moron? Because when they talk like that, we laugh. Anyone ever uses the word unhoused, I know you're crazy. And I know you're a liberal.
Why'd you look at Jessica when you said
I had
crazy?
to glance. Even Jessica doesn't even use this stuff.
True.
My liberal parents don't talk like this. This is for the extreme of the extreme. These are fake phrases that intellectuals use to sound sophisticated and snobby, but they actually sound ridiculous. Now, I like the idea of having things that you're not supposed to say. I live my life, it's kind of like an axiom. Don't do certain things. Like, I don't do drugs anymore. I don't watch television in my free time. I don't use ethnic humor on television. And these things have gotten me very far.
But you still talk about women a lot.
I do. Should I add that to the list?
I think you should.
Now, the Democrats, if they start not using these words, they're going to start sounding like Judge Jeanine. They're going to start saying the black guy, you know, the gay guy, the illegal alien. Yeah, the homeless guy. He's fat. He's really hungry. This is great, but it's not what you think it is. You'd think Democrats would think, oh, thank God, I'm relieved. I don't have to sound like a professor. No, they're going to be incredibly anxious because now they're worried they're going to offend people. And they're also concerned with not sounding smart enough because at the end of the day, it's really about signaling you're from the upper intellectual class.
Well, you can use words like unhoused, but they spent billions of dollars in California over the last few years, and they have more unhoused homeless people. So you can use words, but if people don't see solutions or policies that actually do something.
Good ideas don't require jargon. If you're using words like these, it's because your ideas don't work. That's why if you change the words and the ideas are still there, it doesn't do any good. This is good news and bad news for me. The bad news is I spent decades exposing these words, and if they take them away, I am out of content. All I'll have left are fat jokes about The View. The good news is they're going to keep making them. Because as long as there are college campuses, they will have new words. I found a new one, heteropessimism.
Ooh.
That defines straight relationships as undesirable. So as soon as you get rid of heteronormative or cisgender, another silly word just comes in and replaces it. It's not just, so I guess instead of just talking about the words, you got to talk about the source. Where do they come from? Teachers' lounges, the leafy academia. You could argue that every awful stance the Dems have come up with comes directly from the campus, whether it's the trans delusion or the pro-Hamas protests, ground zero campuses. The trans movement arose, pretty much after the women's studies department was degraded into gender studies. That's when it really started to change. Now what are they going to do? Species studies? Can I identify as a lemur? I'm thinking about it. Not just academia, the shrink's couch. So there's a combination here because you have the professor's podium, but then you have like triggering, shame, insecurity. These are things you hear in therapy. So it's not just kind of status seeking from a group of elites, a code that you all agree to. It's also something that feeds into yourself so that you feel better, so that you don't take responsibility for your failures. It's somebody else, and that comes from therapy speak.
That is such a great point, and Jessica, we'll get to you in a second. You're so right, because all this stuff came from academia, transgenderism, environmentalism, communism, feminism, and so the Democrats seize it and they make it policy, and then everybody gets hurt, and then you know who they blame?
Yeah.
Straight white people.
Yes.
That's how they do it.
Jesse, it's all your fault.
Jessica.
By the way, I think you would nail the lemur thing. I feel like you have the right characteristics for that. But Jessica, are you relieved that you don't have to use these words anymore?
Well, the one correct thing Jesse said was that I don't actually use those terms.
The one.
Also, communism came from academia.
It did.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it wasn't because people were out there.
Who created communism?
What?
Where did it come from? came from academics, came from radicals in schools.
Oh, come on. I don't want to fight about Marx and whatever. Anyway.
What do you think? A plumber invented it?
Not Joe the plumber. Definitely not
R.I.P.
him.
Well, we have, okay, Donald Trump leaning in right now, anyway, taking 10% of Intel. So we know that he's a fan of communism, or at least state-run capitalism. So this document came from Third Way, which is a think tank founded by Clinton administration people. They know a thing or two about winning elections and winning a wide swath of voters from across the aisle. But I do generally feel like words matter, but deeds matter more. And Donald Trump did teach us that, if that tape can be locker room talk and be acceptable to a lot of people, then you can probably speak a little bit out of turn and still get away with it. And Democrats really need to lean into the results argument. What are your policies that are going to make people's lives better? Jerome Powell out there today giving you plenty of fodder, right? GDP going down to 1.2%. It was 2.5% last year. Why? Consumer spending down because of the tariffs. Ride on that. Don't talk like a weirdo. We're going to win.
Listen, you sound like the vice president also said his free advice to the Democrats. No, he said free advice to the Democrats was don't talk like a crazy person. So you guys do agree on something.
Or quote Jerome Powell about how Donald Trump is sinking our economy.
He's not, but good try.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
We'll be back with a lot more. Up next, President Trump is ripping into, quote, lowlife and, quote, sleazebag John Bolton after the stunning FBI raid on his house.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.